If I can't be with you, I'd rather be by myself. No, I can't lie, I don't want anybody else. Those happy days that we once knew, so long ago, they still make me blue. I want you right now. If I could show you some.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and hello if you are new. I will be sharing 3 recipes with you today that are quick, easy, kid-friendly, and super delicious. So if you need some help deciding what you're gonna have this week, I have 3 new options for you. Let's get started. The first recipe we are sharing with you today is easy chicken and broccoli. You say hi. Say hello. The first recipe we are sharing with you today is easy chicken and broccoli. It's a paleo recipe. It's super easy. It only takes about 30 to 40 minutes to make, and it is super delicious. We served it over brown rice, but you can serve it however you would like. If it's over mashed potatoes, white rice, brown rice, on the side of anything else, or just alone, it is so delicious and so flavorful, and it was a great weeknight meal selection. So like I mentioned before, this is a paleo and Whole30 friendly recipe I found on Pinterest. It's super healthy and super easy. It did not take me long to make at all. While the chicken was marinating, I went ahead and prepped everything else, and that was just enough time to have the chicken marinate for it to be super flavorful. So prepping it for the marinade, I cut the chicken into 1-inch pieces and then threw them in this little white bowl you see to the side, and then went and seasoned it with a bunch of different things. The recipe called for coconut aminos. That's usually what I use when I cook over soy sauce anyway, so I always have that in my house. The only thing I really had to buy for this was tapioca starch. It calls for tapioca starch over cornstarch. I don't really know what the nutritional difference is, but I'm guessing there must be something in cornstarch that's not paleo and Whole30 friendly, which called for tapioca starch, and it actually works really well. It works just as great as cornstarch to thicken things and to have it give that nice crispy cooking texture to it that you would get if you coated something with cornstarch.
It's easy to speak out about the way I live, but it's a 24-karat dream. No supermodel in my dirty jeans, but in my 24 inches heels. I'm not pretending I'm born like this, a game for the reckless. It's so extreme and I don't really care. I don't really care, yeah. And I don't really care. I don't really care, yeah.
So now that that is all diced up, I am going to go in with some onion powder and sprinkle that as much as I feel fit. Some garlic powder, same thing. I think you can never have enough garlic powder. Some black pepper, some salt, and then I will go in with the coconut aminos. And then once the coconut aminos is on there, I go in and I put 2 to 3 teaspoons of tapioca starch on top, and then just mix it with a spoon and put it to the side while I prep the broccoli and garlic for cooking.
For the reckless, it's so extreme and I don't really care. I don't really care, yeah. No, I don't really care. I don't really care, yeah. They're calling me a mad woman, calling me a a mad woman, mad woman. No, I don't really care, I don't really care, yeah. 'Cause boy, it's none of your business if I'm a mad woman.
I almost forgot I had to make the sauce for the stir fry after, so that is just 3 tablespoons of coconut aminos, and I just guessed this amount. I didn't really measure it out. And then it is toasted sesame oil, and it was, I think, 2 teaspoons of this. And then I went in with some chicken broth, and it was 5 tablespoons of chicken broth, and I did, I think, about 5.5. Since I didn't measure the coconut aminos, I wanted to make sure it was even enough. And once that is done, I sprinkled a little bit more tapioca starch in there. It was just a tablespoon to a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of this. And I just mixed it up and left it to the side. And before I dumped it in the stir fry, I gave it one quick turn over once again. And that's it. And it was the most delicious sauce I have ever made and did justice to this meal. So now that the sauce is done, I am going to go ahead and wash the broccoli, and then I am going to cut it up and steam it before I cook it on the stove. So I like to steam my broccoli by wetting it by washing it and putting it in a plate or a bowl and putting a wet paper towel over them, and then I just throw it in the microwave for about 2 to 3 minutes and it steams it perfectly. And once that's done, I am able to stir fry it, and I like my broccoli with a little bit of a crunch to it. I know a lot of people like it a little bit on the softer side, but I like the crunch. I like to know I'm eating broccoli. And my kids used to love broccoli. Well, actually, James used to love broccoli, but now he won't eat it anymore, and Jacob has never eaten it, and it breaks my heart. But they do like cauliflower crust pizza, so I'm thinking if I sneak some in there, they might not know the difference, and I can get a little broccoli in their system because it does have so many good health benefits. So then I go ahead and I separate the whites of the scallions or green onions, however you prefer to call them, from the greens, and I usually cut them up until the leafy part of them and then consider that the whites, and then the more leafy part of it, I consider that the green. And I feel that it works. It works pretty well for me. It gives a lot of flavor to the food. And then I used 4 or 5 garlic cloves in this, and I minced it up with the knife. And then I moved over to the stove and started cooking the chicken.
Got your blue jeans and your white shirt on. You're a natural phenomenon. Sun is heating up my body, but so are you. How do you do it? Standing there with the matches in your hand. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for? I got fire, I'm burning up inside. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for? You are kryptonite. I am burning up inside. You are kryptonite, and I am burning up inside. You are kryptonite. I am burning up inside. You are kryptonite.
I oiled the pan with about 2 tablespoons of oil, and full disclosure, I am so used to using the back burner that that's the burner I turned on. So while I was waiting for the oil to heat up, I was wondering why it wasn't looking like it was anywhere near heated after a couple minutes, and then I realized my back burner was on, not the front burner. So I turned on the front burner and waited a couple more minutes for it to heat up, and then threw all the chicken in. I got most of it in before the pan was full, and I had to cook the chicken in 2 batches because it all didn't fit in this one pan, but it is the largest one I have. So I had to make it work, and it worked out at the end. So I went in and I left it on one side for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and flipped it over and let it cook for another couple minutes. So I think I cooked the chicken 5 minutes in total. Since they were in chunks, they cook a lot faster. And once they were done, I put them aside on a plate and let them rest there while I sauteed the green onions, garlic, broccoli, and then added the chicken and the sauce back in after. And this recipe also calls for ginger. I never buy fresh ginger because it always goes bad in my house. So I always use the powdered version of it. It's more cooking friendly for me than using minced garlic, or ginger I should say. Using minced ginger, the powdered version is just way easier for me and more friendly for my home because I don't really like ginger to begin with. So the powdered version is a more mild flavor because you can control how much you're really getting, I guess. So I sauteed the green onions, I sauteed the garlic, sprinkled in a little ginger powder, not garlic powder, ginger powder, and then mixed that around a little bit for about a minute just to get the smell going and getting the aromas in the air. And then I added the broccoli and sauteed that for about 5 minutes to soften it a little more after it had steamed in the microwave for 3 minutes.
Lights are shining bright. My friends are in the club. We'll go all night.
And after letting it saute for a few minutes, I went and added the chicken back in and gave that a little mix, and then went ahead and sprinkled the sauce on top and let that thicken for just a minute. Took a minute or 2 minutes, and that's it. And this meal was absolutely delicious, and it makes for great leftovers. I find that you can freeze it and heat it up. It's a great quick grab and take with you for lunch, and it was absolutely delicious. It will be on rotation in my house because it was quick and easy.
The second recipe we're going to be sharing with you today is some spinach banana muffins with chocolate chips. I found this recipe at yummytoddlerfoods.com. It is a delicious recipe, and that website has so many great ideas. I have very picky children. It's very hard to get them to eat a lot of variety of vegetables, and this is a great recipe to sneak in some greens into their diet and give them something that's both delicious and healthy. And bonus is it has no sugar in it. We used honey, but if you have a little one that's under a year old, you can also substitute it for maple syrup, and it is equally as delicious. And they freeze really well, so it is a great, easy option to have, and all you need is a blender.
Like I said, all you need is a blender. With this recipe, it calls for everything except the flour going in the blender. So I used 2 cups of lightly packed spinach, and after the first cup I kind of just gave up and used my hands and guesstimated how much spinach I was putting in. Never too much at this point. So I put in the spinach, and then I save my ripe bananas in my freezer so I can use them to make things like this, or pancakes, or a smoothie, what have you. It beats throwing them away, so they get used. And then I used a 1/4 cup of honey to sweeten the mix. And I like honey as the alternative to sugar, and it really doesn't taste like there's no sugar in these muffins. They are absolutely delicious. And before, when Jacob was under a year old, when I would make these, I would make them with maple syrup over honey, since you're not supposed to give children honey under the age of 1. So I used the maple syrup, and it still tasted amazing. And then I went in and added 3/4 cup of whole milk here, and also a cup of oats and 2 eggs. The oats I ran out of. I thought I had more than I did. I got about a cup. There was maybe a little less than that, but it didn't really make too much of a difference in the batter. It still was pretty thick. And then a little bit of baking soda, some vanilla extract, and then you just go ahead and blend it all up. Oh, and a pinch of salt. Every baking recipe always calls for a pinch of salt, so you don't taste it, but it's in there. So once all the ingredients are in the blender, I go ahead and turn it on and then put it in the bowl with the flour.
It was a Thursday.
I got this NutriBullet blender years and years ago, maybe 8 years ago, and I use it more since having children than I ever did before having children. It's my go-to for so many things, whether it's making smoothies. I used it to make baby food when they were a lot smaller, and I use it pretty often for baking. I've found a lot of recipes that you can sneak veggies in and beans, believe it or not, and just make everything a little bit more healthy and to give them the nutrition that is very difficult to get into a lot of children. I know it's not only my kids that are picky, but it's a challenge. The older they get, the more opinion they have on what they eat. And of course, they'd rather eat Cheez-Its and fruit snacks over broccoli and cucumbers. But there's balance in everything, right? I still try and get it in them any way I can. And I've had James actually help me make muffins with zucchini in them and bananas. And he even wanted to help make these. He watched me make these. He watched me put the spinach in, and he just made sure I put the chocolate chips in there because it made it more motivating for him to want to eat them, knowing that there were chocolate in them. And he loves them. After I made these, he ate 2 of them in one sitting, and then wanted to eat his brother's too, because his brother is teething and didn't want to eat them in that moment. But he absolutely loves these.
I will come running, babe. Every day. Yeah, every day, babe. And days turned into nights on the couch. No, I'm not the same. Everything has changed. Every day, 24/7, you call my name, and I will come running. Yeah, every day, 24/7. Yeah, every day, I will come running, babe.
And once they are all in the muffin tin, they baked in the oven at 350 degrees for 18 minutes.
I'm going out with you tonight. Are you close to here? I'm feeling down, I don't know why. No, it's so surreal.
And the last recipe I'm sharing today is Tuscan vegetable soup. This is a very quick, it only takes 20 minutes to make vegetable soup, and everything that you can have is more than likely already in your pantry. It is so quick, so flavorful, and so delicious, and it is a great lunch option. You can freeze it if you don't get through it, and it's an easy option for kids, and it is full of protein. It has beans in it. So this is another great weeknight option if you are looking for something that's quick, easy, and nutritious to feed your children and yourselves during the week.
And I totally forgot to hit record after I put the pan on the stove, so I didn't show me putting all the veggies in the pan. But there are veggies. There is zucchini, there is carrots, there is celery, and I sprinkled sage and Italian seasoning on top, as well as some salt and pepper, and mixed it all up. And there is also some onion in there. And then also realized when I was making this, I turned on the back burner. I don't know what's wrong with me. I always turn on the back burner. But once I figured it out, I let it saute once the pan actually heated up for about 5 to 7 minutes to just let everything get a little bit more tender. And then I went and added chicken broth to this, as well as petite diced tomatoes, and let that come to a boil. And then once it came to a boil, I added the beans, and I used the white cannelli beans here, and then stirred it and let it come to a boil again. And once that was all cooked up, I added the spinach to it and let it wilt, and that's it. And the only adjustment I had to make to this after I had cooked it and did the taste test was I just added a teeny bit more salt, maybe about a teaspoon more to this, and it was perfect. It was absolutely delicious, and you would never know it doesn't have any meat in it. It's so flavorful. It's so light but hearty at the same time, and it's a great meal. And if you have smaller children, you can always blend the vegetables so they are easier for them to get down, as well as the beans. You can just blend all the soup so it is more in a pureed form, so it's easier for them to eat. You can serve it with a little bread. I sprinkled some fresh grated Parmesan cheese over mine, and it was absolutely chef's kiss, delightful. I make this quite often, and I loved it. And if you haven't tried, it's delicious.
Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that you found something that you would like to try in this video, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you are new here, please subscribe. I would love to have you here, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.